I have heard from many of my constituents about the refugee program and its impact on Idaho. As refugee admissions are increasing, there's growing concern that bad actors are not being caught in the vetting process and are gaining admission alongside bona fide refugees living in fear. I'm actually an advocate of refugee programs. I think it's a good thing to have refugee programs. But there's a lot of misconceptions out there and a lot of real fear about the people that are coming into the United States. This Congress has an obligation to address those concerns and ensure that the process is working correctly and protecting our national security. Numerous times over the past year, including yesterday, both the FBI's Assistant Director for the Counterterrorism Division, Michael Steinbeck, and yourself have testified about the flaws and limitations in the vetting of Syrian refugees. On October 8th, you testified that you were concerned about certain gaps in the data available to the FBI, and yesterday you testified that the FBI can only query what has been previously collected, which is obvious. I know that you have addressed this issue before, and you've addressed it, I think, once here today. But can you please explain to this committee the security gaps that exist for purposes of conducting full and effective background checks on foreign nationals who claim to have fled the conflict zone of Syria and who are seeking to be resettled as refugees in the United States?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Labrador. We learned some good lessons from less than excellent screening of Iraqi refugees 8 years ago or so. And in fact, we learned that some folks we had let in were serious actors that we had to lock up after we figured out who they were. And so we have gotten much better as an intelligence community at joining our efforts and checking our databases in a way that gives us high confidence. If we have a record on somebody, it will surface. That's the good news. The bad news is, as we talked about earlier, with Iraqi refugees, we had an opportunity for many more encounters between folks in Iraq and our soldiers, for example. So we had a lot more data. We had fingerprints, iris scans, we had forensics of different kinds. The challenge we face with Syria is that we don't have that rich a set of data. So even though we've gotten better at querying what we have, we certainly will have less overall. And so, as I said to a question earlier, someone only alerts as a result of our searches if we have some record on them. That's the challenge we face with Syria.
So is it accurate to state that the lack of intelligence available on the ground in Syria is rendering our traditional database biographic and biometric checks obsolete?
I wouldn't agree obsolete, but I would say we have a less robust data set dramatically than we have with Iraq, so it will be different.
So the FBI has repeatedly contrasted the United States' ability to collect intelligence on the ground in Iraq with its ability to do so in Syria. What can the FBI do to adapt to improve security checks for refugees originating from failed states with no available intelligence?
Well, that's a hard one. What we can do, the FBI, is just make sure that whatever is available figures into our review. But the underlying problem is, how do you generate intelligence in failed states? And that's one I don't have a good answer for.
So are you currently working with the intelligence community to try to fix this problem?
Oh, certainly. Everyone in the intelligence community is focused on trying to mitigate this risk by querying well and also finding additional sources of information so we can check against it.
Recognizing that ISIS in Syria and that there is a risk that bad actors may attempt to take advantage of this administration's commitment to bring at least 10,000 Syrian refugees into the United States over the next year, can you estimate the manpower and resources that will need to be diverted from other investigative programs to address this threat?
I'm not able to do that sitting here.
How can I ensure my constituents that the people that may or come to Idaho are safe, that they're not terrorists, that the people in my community are going to be safe?
Well, on behalf of the FBI, what you can assure them is that we will work day and night to make sure that if there's information available about somebody, we have surfaced it and we have evaluated it.
And I understand that if there's information, but the problem is that we don't have the information on most of these people. Isn't that true?
Yeah, so I can't sit here and offer anybody an absolute assurance that there's no risk associated with this.
Thank you very much.